Now we're looking at the production input. This is the form that you complete your raw material in terms of consumption for raw material. This is more for a manufacturing or a more heavy operating process where the raw materials are converted into outputs, or where the raw material are very significant inputs into the operation. So you need to analyze your raw material. What it means is basically raw materials are key to the operations and how profit your organization can be. So analyzing it and knowing each stage of your operating process, how much of raw material are you consuming? You might be consuming different raw materials at certain stages. You're not consuming this one, you're consuming a different one. But you can create as many raw materials as possible, but you need to make sure that you allocate your raw material per operating process, so that you need to know which process costs you how much, so that when you look at your business plan, you can see how much each operation is costing you. Because sometimes you don't know how much is costing you in terms of each operation. You can analyze your operational efficiencies. When you're looking at the operations, you just know your raw material is so much, but where did you spend it in the process, and how much are you spending, so that you can come up with different strategies in terms of how to save and how to make your operations more efficient. So like all other forms, at the bottom there you have your educational material. If you want to learn more about the raw materials, you can open the videos, you can watch the videos, you can read more about it. And if you want to learn more about how to complete the form and what certain things mean in the form, then you can also read there. We provided you the educational material. So to create your raw material, you just click on create. I'm assuming if you are creating it, then you have data. So in terms of that, industry segment is the one that you selected when you're setting up your operations. Let's say your raw material is how do you call it? Maybe we're manufacturing roof. So we're manufacturing sand product, maybe roof tiles or something like that. So let's say sand. My fund is easily available, but let's say we're buying it on the market, on open market. You can be, if it's a scarce commodity or is it imported. Sometimes you import certain raw material depending on different organizations. This one is freely available, and then we have our suppliers that can provide us with the product, sufficient product. They can at an agreed price, so they can provide us with the product that you're looking for depending on the planned production level. We've engaged with them, we've negotiated, we know how much we're gonna spend on that. Because access to raw material, sometimes it becomes a very, very important component of the business. I know many businesses that failed because they can't get access to raw material, or there's not sufficient raw material coming through the process. Because you need to have enough raw material to go through the process, so that, let's say it's a big operations, like you're operating heavy machines, you need to make sure that you have sufficient sand, you have sufficient cement, and if you are mixing with concrete, you have sufficient concrete, so that when you're producing, it doesn't stop at a certain process. Because imagine you are producing concrete, you need to put in a raw material, they get mixed, then you get to a certain stage, you add water, then you get to the last stage, instead of maybe adding final water, then you don't have sufficient water. So that product might end up being a damage or a waste product. So you need to understand your operation depending on the sectors that you are in. And certain sectors, like if you are in training, raw material is not important. So at the on top here, we'll just say no, it's not important, and we confirm and we move on. Because we're not using a lot of raw material. So if you are in services business, raw material, they don't influence your decision making in terms of if you should continue with the operation or not, if the operation will be profitable or not. So they are negligible. So yes, we have the suppliers, we have average price per unit, per cubic meter, whatever, maybe 600. And then the risk factors that are affecting the supply of sand is we're relying on one supplier. Rely on one supplier. And then how we mitigate that, we'll continuously engage other suppliers. Let's say our current supplier is providing us with a good product at an affordable price. Let's say we're only using sand at stage when the required is stage 3, and then maybe we're using 300 cubic meters. So now once you cubic meters, then we confirm, then the total cost will be calculated by the system. If you want to go back to the form, you click on edit, and then if there's anything that you want to change, you can do that. But what I was saying about, you can see the system has calculated the required input and then the required cost. So it will be able to show you in terms of how much you're spending on each stage on this raw material. So that becomes very important. Then I just confirm again. Then that's our raw material. Then when I go back to the dashboard, you'll see that the raw material is completed. Both forms are blue. So that's how you complete raw material, and access to sufficient raw material is just important. I just want to highlight that, and as well as closer. Sometimes some businesses want you to be closer to raw material. So make sure that you understand the requirements in terms of your operation. Are you closer to raw material? How much raw material would you need? And have you secured that raw material? Because if you are going into a business that require a lot of raw material, you need to make sure that you have secured that material. So that is the production input, which is raw material. That's how you complete that form. Thank you.